NBA players. You'd think since they play the game at a professional level, since they played against some of the all-time greats, that they'd have more knowledge than your average fan about who's the best and which players rank where. But no matter how you look at it, after watching this video and hearing who some current players, NBA legends, and a few analysts have as their top 5 players of all time, I guarantee that you'll realize some NBA players have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, honestly, these will blow you away, especially this first one. No doubt LeBron James is one of the smartest players of all time, but the fact that his top 5 is himself at 1, followed by Michael Jordan, Dr. J, Larry Bird, and then Magic Johnson makes that seem a little questionable. He gave his top 4 in an interview, I want to say around 2013, which was these 4 starting with MJ, but with him saying a couple of years ago that he thinks he's the GOAT, we pushed them back and that makes his 5. Honestly though, alright, putting himself at 1 was already controversial enough as it was, but Larry Bird at 4, Dr. J at 3? Too high for Larry Bird, and I mean, I really haven't seen too many people rank him over Magic Johnson, and Julius at 3, I mean, he's barely even in anyone's top 10. But trust me, it gets worse. Like Paul Pierce's recent take of MJ at 1, followed by KAREEM, Bill Russell, then Magic Johnson, and Kobe Bryant. Okay, MJ at 1, KAREEM at 2, and Magic at 4, those are all passable. Not many people have Kobe at 5, but as you'll see, most guys that played against him did include him in their lists. The real problem though here is Russell at 3 and not including LeBron. And you know it's because James destroyed the Celtics in the playoffs every year. It's clear that there's still a grudge, and his only reason for keeping him off of his 5 was that he builds his own teams. But even if that's true, it doesn't take away from the player that he is. As for Russell at 3, he's a fellow Celtic and a certified winner, but ranked a few spots too high for having played in the 60s. Charles Barkley's list is just as questionable, probably a little bit more, with Jordan at 1, Oscar Robertson at 2, Bill Russell at 3, Wilt Chamberlain at 4, and KAREEM at 5. Alright, come on, Oscar at 2? His reason was because he averaged a triple-double for a season. I'm sure he doesn't have Westbrook in his top 10. The rest of his list isn't too crazy though, but it is worth mentioning that after one of Kobe's games in 2012, he did go on record saying that Kobe Bryant was the 5th greatest player ever. But somewhere down the line, he did change his list. But don't worry, it gets worse. I mean, here's the top 5 players of all time in Dwayne Wade's opinion. With number 1 of course being MJ, 2 LeBron, 3 Kobe, 4 Allen Iverson, and 5 Shaq. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of bias here. His best friend's LeBron at 2, which we can't be mad at because a lot of people have him there. His idol growing up in Kobe was at 3, but Allen Iverson at 4? I mean, come on. You gotta imagine it's because he watched him growing up, was inspired by his play style, and then was able to play against him once he got into the league. AI's great, but I mean, Wade's picking favorites here. Then he had Shaq at 5, which might be a little too high. And speaking of Shaq, he made it a point to never put out his own top 5 players of all time list, but a fan did put out this picture of his top 10 players of all time, and Shaquille reposted with saying, "Not mad at this, probably would have moved myself to number 10 though." So he's saying he's okay with a 5 of MJ, LeBron, HAKEEM OLAJUWON at number 3, Larry at 4, and Tim Duncan at 5. I mean, okay, first off, the dude who made this, slap yourself. And Shaq, slap yourself twice for going along with it. HAKEEM at 3, most all-time lists have HAKEEM at 10 or just right outside of it. But playing against him and getting blown out in the finals by him, Shaq knows how good HAKEEM was. I definitely don't agree with putting him there, but I could see where they were coming from. And as we mentioned before, Bird at 4 is just too high. And come on, Tim Duncan at 5, also too high. But let's switch over to some analysts for a minute. They're super fans, they talk about the game for a living. Let's see if they have a little bit of a better grasp on things. Stephen A. Smith put together this 5 in 2018. MJ at 1, Magic at 2, KAREEM at 3, Duncan at 4, and LeBron James at 5. I mean, honestly, okay, Duncan's great, I know. I get how good he was. But he is not the 4th or 5th greatest basketball player of all time. You can't be too mad at the rest of the list though, but I can see people saying maybe Magic and LeBron should be swapped. So Stephen A's isn't terrible, but who gave Colin Cowherd a job and let him tell this 5 of Jordan, LeBron, Magic, Kobe, and Larry Bird on national television? The top 5 really isn't as terrible as some that we've seen, but what he said after about why he constructed it this way was, because he said he included no centers in his top 5 players list because they don't deserve to be there because they're the least skilled players in the NBA. He said players with no true skills that aren't good ball handlers, passers, or shooters shouldn't be ranked higher than players who are more skilled. I mean, okay, so where do we draw the line? Do we rank Kyrie Irving ahead of Wilt Chamberlain? Do we rank Luka Doncic ahead of Kareem? His logic may be true for ranking current players because the center position is dying, but it wasn't that way when some of the all-time greats played. So get this man out of here. Other longtime analyst Nick Wright actually has one of the more realistic top 5 lists of the entire video though, with LeBron at 1, MJ at 2, Kareem at 3, Magic at 4, and Bill Russell at 5. Now, of course, this is aside from the fact that he's literally in love with LeBron James. Besides that though, we can respect the rest of this 5. Kobe Bryant gave his personal take of the 5 greatest players to ever play the game back in 2013. Now, if he was still with us, his list today may haven't included LeBron, but since he didn't put out an updated top 5 players, this is the one we got, which I'm pretty sure he listed off in no order, with Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Bill Russell, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I'm assuming in order it probably would have looked like this, but that's just a guess. Either way though, not a bad list for one of the GOATs. Current player Quinn Cook on the other hand though, his 5 consisted of Michael Jordan at 1, smart move, LeBron James at 2, makes sense, Kobe Bryant at 3, okay, a little too high, but he played against him, I guess it makes sense. But then Kevin Durant at number 4, they were teammates, but come on. This is the first and only time you'll ever see him on a top 5 all-time list while we're at this point in his career, and it just loses this man credibility. But then he puts Shaq at 5, which is kinda random looking at his other 4, but it doesn't matter, he already has no credibility. Steph Curry's list on the other hand kept him his credibility, and it goes to Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron James, Shaq, and Magic Johnson. I mean, this isn't the list that I personally would go with, but it's clear that he favors dominance when ranking players, and I can respect that. At least he sticks to a theme. But then Giannis Antetokounmpo's list is made up of Michael Jordan at 1, Kobe Bryant at 2, LeBron James at 3, Magic at 4, and Shaq and Kareem tied for the 5th spot. The main thing that stands out here is Kobe at 2, and while it is a little too high, before his passing it seemed like a lot of people all had him right outside of their top 10s, but it's nice to see that that's finally changing like it should. And I mean, almost everyone that played against him has him top 5, which is also good and helps his case. And KD's another one of those guys. His list was a couple years back and he said he wasn't including any current players, but if he was, LeBron would have been in his top 5. Since he left him out though, it was left at Michael, then Kobe at 2, followed by Magic Johnson, Shaq, and then Tim Duncan. And he's another guy that's got Duncan in his top 5, which I don't get. It's clear though that there's a lot of bias in all these lists, although the players are putting in guys who they watched growing up or played against, and all the current players are doing the same thing. And it's probably why a lot of these lists sound so whack. Speaking of whack though, that brings us to Meta World Peace, who reminds us of that word for a lot of different reasons. For those and his top 5 all-time list. And I mean, it was barely worth even mentioning because it's 95% probably a troll, but because it's our test, there's still a 5% chance that this man actually believes the fact that his top 5 is actually Oscar Robertson at 1, Michael Jordan at 2, Kobe at 3, then Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James. Let's just move on. Now, for some reason, when Dr. J was asked about his top 5 of all time, he gave his 5 from when he was a teenager and said it was his list then, so it's still his list now. I don't know, but I mean, alright. And he had Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, and Jerry West. About the same order I would rank these 5 guys. Reggie Miller was asked about his 5 in 2015 before LeBron brought a championship to Cleveland, so he wasn't in his 5 at this point, and it was instead Michael at 1, Magic at 2, then Larry Bird, Kareem, and Hakeem Olajuwon. And an interesting choice to put Larry Bird over Kareem, and even more so to put Hakeem at 5. I mean, Hakeem's always an interesting topic. He's usually always in everyone's top 10 or just outside of it, but there's also those few people that say he was easily a top 5 player ever. Jason Tatum from the younger generation though was not one of those people, because he had Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, Magic, and Kareem. Nothing crazy wrong here that we haven't already been through. I'm surprised though in general. I would have thought a lot more people would have had Kareem at the number 2 spot. Isaiah Thomas did one better though, and he put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the number 1 greatest player of all time, followed by Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan at 3, Larry Bird, and Julius Erving. And we can clearly still smell the grudge on this one. Now, some people would save the best for last, but I saved the worst for last. Because this man, Kristaps Porzingis, he said this was his top 5. but I think he was meaning all-time starting 5. But still, even then, let's say that's what he meant for his sake. He had Kyrie Irving at point guard over Magic Johnson and Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant at shooting guard over Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant at small forward over LeBron James, Dirk at power forward, and Shaq at center. I would say he's just trolling here as much as Ron Artest was, but I don't think he has that sense of humor, and this one's just crazy enough to be believable. So as you can see, I mean, in these conversations between which players are better, first instinct would be to take current or former players' words for it on who's better, because they know the game better, because it's what they do every single day. But I hope this video proves that a good amount of them have no idea what they're talking about. And on top of that, bias, former grudges, and lack of knowledge also all affects their opinions. So don't believe everything players say. Do drop your all-time 5 in the comment section though, along with liking the video, subscribing, and I'll catch you next time.